Somewhere in a tide pool right now, a starfish is being torn in half by a predator, and instead of dying, it's about to become two starfish. No mating, no partner, no genetic shuffling, just division. And starfish aren't alone. Certain sharks have gotten pregnant in empty tanks with zero males present. Whole species of lizards exist where every single individual is female, and somehow the species is thriving. So here's the question worth sitting with. If cloning yourself is such a reliable way to survive, why did evolution ever bother inventing sex at all? Let's define terms first, because cloning sounds like science fiction, but biologically, it's ancient, older than sex itself. When an organism reproduces asexually, it's making a genetic copy of itself, no mixing of DNA from two parents. The offspring is, functionally, a twin of the parent, born generations apart. And it's everywhere once you start looking. Take the starfish example from the hook. Many starfish species can regenerate an entire body from a single severed arm, as long as a sliver of the central disc comes with it. Cut a starfish into pieces under the right conditions, and instead of one dead animal, you can end up with several living ones. It's less reproduction in the romantic sense, and more like the animal's shattering into functional copies of itself. Then there's parthenogenesis, virgin birth, which sounds mythological but is a documented reproductive strategy in dozens of species. Female aphids can produce daughters without ever encountering a male, and those daughters are already pregnant with the next generation before they're even born, nested like biological Russian dolls. Certain whiptail lizard species have taken this further than almost anything else on the planet. There are no males. The entire species is female, and has been for its entire evolutionary history. Reproduction still involves courtship-like behavior between two females, which stimulates egg development, but genetically, every offspring is a copy of its single parent. Even large predators do this. Komodo dragons, hammerhead sharks, and zebra sharks have all been documented giving birth in captivity after years of complete isolation from males, a phenomenon zookeepers didn't fully believe until DNA testing confirmed it. And the undisputed asexual reproduction champion of the animal kingdom might be the hydra, a tiny freshwater organism that can sprout an entire new individual as a bud off its own body, and which some researchers argue may not biologically age at all. So if copying yourself works this well, no need to find a mate, no wasted energy on courtship, every individual capable of reproducing, the obvious question is why sexual reproduction ever evolved to dominate the animal kingdom. Most complex animals, humans included, go through the costly, risky, energy-intensive process of finding a partner and combining DNA. Evolutionarily, that should be a losing strategy compared to just cloning yourself twice as fast. The leading explanation is something biologists call the Red Queen hypothesis, named after the character in Through the Looking Glass who has to keep running just to stay in place. Asexual populations are genetically uniform. Every individual is nearly identical to its parent. That's efficient until a parasite or pathogen evolves a way to exploit that exact genetic weakness. Because every member of the population shares the same vulnerability, a single successful pathogen can spread through an entire asexual lineage almost unopposed. Sexual reproduction, by contrast, shuffles genes every single generation. It constantly generates new combinations, new variations, new defenses. It's slower and more expensive, but it keeps the population a moving target. In a world full of adapting parasites and shifting environments, genetic diversity isn't a luxury, it's armor.
This is where the Kellogg experiment becomes relevant, even though it wasn't about cloning at all. In the 1930s, psychologist Winthrop Kellogg raised a baby chimpanzee, Gua, alongside his own infant son, Donald, treating them as identically as possible to study how much of development was nature versus environment. The experiment ended abruptly, not because the chimp failed to develop, but because Donald began adopting the chimp's behaviors, chimp vocalizations, chimp movement, chimp ways of exploring the world. The finding wasn't really about chimps. It was a stark demonstration that genetically similar starting points don't guarantee similar outcomes. Environment, interaction, and variation reshape an organism constantly. It's the same underlying principle showing up in a completely different context. Uniformity is fragile, and variation, genetic or environmental, is what allows adaptation. That's the deeper thread connecting the whiptail lizard to the Kellogg chimp to human biology itself. Asexual species that persist long-term, like some whiptail lizards, tend to survive in stable, low-competition environments with few parasites, places where the red queen isn't running very fast. The moment the environment gets more volatile or more crowded with things trying to eat or infect you, genetic diversity stops being optional. Which brings the question back to us. Humans can't clone ourselves biologically, but we've built something that functions almost like it: culture. Every generation doesn't have to reinvent language, tools, or medicine from scratch. We copy what worked from the generation before, nearly identical, passed down almost like a genetic replica of the last one. And just like biological cloning, that's efficient until it isn't. Ideas that go unquestioned, systems that never get challenged, traditions that never adapt, they become exactly as vulnerable as a genetically uniform species facing a new parasite. The starfish regenerating in a tide pool and the whiptail lizard with no males at all aren't just biological oddities. They're a working demonstration of a trade-off every system, genetic or cultural, eventually has to make. Copy what works and move fast, or diversify and stay resilient. Nature runs both experiments simultaneously across millions of species all the time. And somewhere out there right now, that torn starfish is quietly proving one of those strategies still works exactly as well as it did 500 million years ago.